And joining us now is Jim Warne, executive producer of Remember the Children. He's also an ASU graduate and a member of ASU's 1987 Rose Bowl champion football team. Good to have you here. Thank you. Congratulations on the film. What got you started on this?
Well, as an educator and advocate all of my life, post-football career, I went into academics, and I've been teaching and advocating about indigenous issues and all sorts of elements. And this particular film, The Boarding School, my mom is a survivor of Indian boarding school. She went to the Pine Ridge Indian boarding school in the 1940s. And she's still with us today, so I'm still able to talk with her. And she's in the film. She starts off the film, so she's my star.
Yeah.
But she shares a lot of information, and she's an educator and advocate as well. So she's really able to share those stories in an impactful way.
Describe the Rapid City Indian School in South Dakota.
Yes, it's they just tore down some of the original building. They are building a new hospital there, but there used to be a tuberculosis clinic after this boarding school. But the boarding schools were designed to take the language, take the culture, cut our hair, change our clothes. So it was forced assimilation, often through physical, mental, and emotional, and sexual abuse, unfortunately.
I was going to say the results were disease, neglect, malnutrition, beatings, handcuffs, and unmarked graves.
Yes.
Talk to us about that. That must have been very sobering.
Yes, and many people recall the Pope was in Canada this summer apologizing for the residential schools in Canada and the thousands of unmarked graves they're finding there with modern technology. We're doing the same here with the 400 boarding schools that were here in the United States. We want to find those children, acknowledge them, and get them home.
You talked about your mom having spent time in a boarding school. I'm sure others as well. How did you research this story?
Going through, we had a research team that was working on it for 2 years prior to bringing me in as a filmmaker. So there was a lot of experts that got that information, found the names of those 50 children that were not identified that passed away at the school, and were able to identify those kids and utilize that research to tell the story in a good way with a lot of the facts that were uncovered through that research.
I was going to say, it sounds to me like if you had enough people, you'd almost be overrun by some of the information.
It is overwhelming, and more is happening. I actually just took a position on the school board for Red Cloud Indian School that's still operating today, and they recently did some LiDAR search for some of the missing children there as well. So many of the schools are doing this like Canada did over the past few years.
You made the film with regional Lakota people, true?
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, home is South Dakota. I grew up here in Tempe, but home is South Dakota, where our DNA is, if you will.
Yes.
And so it's really personal for me as a Lakota tribal member to share those stories of our Lakota people. And my films have been addressing indigenous issues, mostly associated with my tribe, but I do delve into other indigenous stories.
Was this something, when you were growing up in Tempe and playing at Tempe High School and going to ASU and get a football career, winning the champion, was this something that was always bubbling under the surface, or something that was really front and center with you?
It was kind of bubbling because front and center was athletics, but it was always there. And that expectation was given us by our mom, who was a strong res woman, we say. She grew up on the reservation. She made sure we knew our language, our culture, and knew who we were as a Lakota men, my brother and I. So growing up and going to Arizona State and having that athletic career, I was always the only native. So I got a lot of press in terms of being a native football player, where there wasn't very many of us at that time.
Yeah. As far as now the Lakota people, when they see this film, what kind of reaction do you see?
There's been healing, actually. There's a lot of tears, and folks that have been hiding it and suppressing it all these years are able to discuss it. So we actually do a warning that some of these traumatic issues may come back at the beginning of the film for our elders that went through that, as well as family members that lost a lot of their traditional ways as a result of these boarding schools.
Yeah, some triggers, right?
Yes, exactly.
What about mom? How does she feel about it?
She's good, and if mom approves, I'm okay. So,
that's great.
So again, she's a strong advocate. She's still teaching at 84 at South Dakota State Nursing, and she ran the Indian nursing program here at Arizona State for many years. So she's still making an impact today and making a difference in the Lakota way with nursing.
Last point on this is somewhere I read a grandfather was asked, why why were these schools even existing? And his quote was, "Because they didn't know us."
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
It is almost still relevant today because our curriculum isn't quite there in telling the true history of Indian country. And I think it's key for more of our non-Indian allies to know who we are as Indigenous people, not just a Hollywood stereotype, which is improving, fortunately, but knowing who we are in curriculum, I think, is important. And as an educator and advocate, that's the difference I make in teaching through film.
And then that's what you want people to take from this film.
Yes, is learn something new about some of the history and some of the things that happened to the Indigenous people of this country.
Well, the film is Remember the Children. Jim Warne, congratulations on this and continued success in your next endeavors. I know you're all over. You're doing all sorts of things here.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us and spending some time with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you for joining us. You have a great evening.